Thank you. Thank you very much. And to have a good look. Two very important issues. I'm sure, Minister Daly, you're glad we're not coming back about the Roscommon Centre on this occasion, even though as Deputy Knockton myself, we'll be coming back to you on that as well. But listen, I think it's fair to say that general practice is under pressure up and down the country. We've seen the protests from the doctors, we've seen the concern expressed. And it's no different in the constituency of Roscommon, Galway. And I have one a GP based in the constituency, and he's been asked, as many doctors are, to take on additional patients from the primary care reimbursement services, that's the PCR's panel appointments. Now, recent protests have highlighted the ongoing pressures being placed on GPs throughout the country, and in this particular GP in my constituency is unfortunately not unique. This GP practice is operating at full capacity. There is now a 3-day waiting list for his surgery, and his existing patients are deeply frustrated at the situation that is ongoing and developing. However, despite this, a number of additional patients have been assigned to him by the PCRS. Unfortunately, he's practiced nursing on maternity leave since December, and he's having serious difficulty in sourcing a full-time nurse, and he has not been successful to date. Now, as a single-handed GP who also took patients from the Oireachtas Centre in Ballaghaderreen, I feel that he should be excluded from patient appointments in his panel. This GP has been asked to take on new patients on a regular basis over the past 2 years, due to a number of issues. Brexit, for example, patients relocating to the West and people coming back to the area to work. There's all been extraordinary pressure on this GP prior to the arrival of patients from Syria. And the Oireachtas Centre, and despite the promises by the government, the Department of Health, no new resources for funding were allocated to Ballaghaderreen area to support the existing health services, and now we can see the fallout from this. If this GP takes additional patients, they will be more than likely end up being assigned to another GP after the 6 months, which the GP is entitled to do. He's entitled, or she's entitled, to ask for those patients to be moved on because they can't handle the situation. Now, this would be very frustrating for the doctor himself, or he or she doesn't want to do it, or for the patients themselves. So the reality is, Minister, particularly in a place like Ballaghaderreen, particularly where a doctor and his staff took on, and very, very genuinely took on, the people from the Oireachtas Centre, and gave a fantastic service and continues to give a fantastic service to those people. Without any help, without any assistance from the department, he's still not able to do it, and he's totally frustrated. And I have the letter here from the HSE where he has been told that another family is coming. I'm not going to give the details here, but it's here. I have it here on the file if you want to see it. Now, this is happening on a continual basis, and simply it's not fair to him. And he talks about, the HSE contacted me last year to take on a family who were moving to the area from the Mosney Centre and being settled in the town of Ballaghaderreen. I was unhappy at the time due to the fact that this placed even a greater burden on the surgery, but once more I accepted the new patients. I think this is very unfair. There were already extraordinary pressures on this surgery prior to the arrival of the patients from Syria. We did, however, provide a GP service to those vulnerable patients, and it was the proper and Christian thing to do. That's the letter I received from the GP, and as you can see, the goodwill, the amount of goodwill that was there to help less fortunate people was extraordinary, and he never closed his door on them. But now you have the situation as people who will go and make their appointment, patients who have been there for years with him. So if they go to make an appointment today, in most cases, he cannot take them till next week. So I'm asking, particularly on the basis where there are Oireachtas centres, where there are direct provision centres, and where doctors have been asked to take on these extra patients, that we do something for them, because there has been no backup given to them.
Minister. Thank you very much, Count Corley. I would like to, and thank you, Deputy, for raising the issue. I would like to assure the House that the Government is committed to the continued development of GP capacity. The goal is to ensure patients across the country continue to have access to GP services, and that general practice is sustainable in all areas into the future. GPs have a crucial role in the provision of primary care services, particularly in rural areas. Local GPs play a vital and ongoing part in the lives of most people in the community. I want to ensure that existing GP services are retained and supported, and that general practice remains an attractive career option for newly qualified doctors. I understand that there are 2 GMS GPs in Ballaghaderreen. In addition to their medical card and private patients, these GPs provide care to refugees in the Emergency and Orientation Centre in Ballaghaderreen. While neither of these GPs have GMS panels exceeding the maximum number of patients permitted under the GMS scheme, the HSE is aware that they are under pressure to provide such services, but has not been made aware of any particular difficulties in this regard. Local HSE management in Roscommon is committed to liaising with the two GPs on an ongoing basis in relation to the provision of services to patients in Ballaghaderreen. The Government is aware of workforce issues generally facing general practice, including the influence of demographic factors, and has implemented a number of measures to improve recruitment and retention in general practice. These include changes to the entry provisions to the GMS scheme to accommodate more flexible shared GMS-GP contracts and to the retirement provisions for GPs under the GMS scheme, allowing GPs to hold GMS contracts until their 72nd birthday. Enhanced supports for rural GP practices have also been introduced. These steps should help to address the future demand for GPs by enticing GPs who may have ceased practising for family or other reasons back into the workforce, facilitating GPs to work past their standard retirement age and encouraging more GPs to work in rural areas. There has been a huge expansion in the number of training places and GP training programmes in recent years. In 2009, there were 120 GP training places available. In 2018, there were 193 places were filled, an increase of around 60% over this 9-year period. It is acknowledged that there are many challenges in general practice. That is why Government remains committed to engaging with GP reps on the development of a package of measures and reforms to modernise the current GMS contract. Talks between the Department of Health, the HSE and the Irish Medical Organisation, as the established GP representative body, are continuing. Agreement on the delivery of these service improvements and contractual reforms has the potential to facilitate a substantial increase in the resourcing of general practice on a multi-annual basis.
Murphy.
Thank you very much, Can Corley, and thank you, Minister, for the fairly comprehensive reply, but obviously I won't be happy with it because, you know, even though you say in part of your reply here, while neither of those GPs have GMS panels exceeding the maximum number of patients permitted under the GMS scheme, the HSE is aware that they are under pressure to provide such services, but has not been made aware of any particular difficulties in this regard. However, from what I've told you already, it's been made quite clear that by this GP that he actually contacted PCRS and said he was unable to continue to take patients like this. And he has made it quite clear to me, while he doesn't want to do it, after 6 months, he's going to have to move those patients on. And it's an unsatisfactory situation. Now, what I'm saying to you is, these are exceptional circumstances. This is a town who, with open arms, you know, accepted less fortunate people in, and we all played our part in that with Minister Staunton, and I want to thank him for his engagement in that. But I can quite clearly remember at the time, when the questions were asked, we were told if extra support was needed in terms in the health area or education area, it would be forthcoming. Now I can tell you, Minister, and I mean this genuinely, only for the volunteers around Ballaghaderreen, those people wouldn't have a great existence. And only for the doctors around Ballaghaderreen, those people wouldn't have a great existence, who constantly look after them, who constantly give the service, who have done it because they both said it was the Christian thing to do. And I feel in a case like this, and I'll ask you to take this back to the Minister maybe, where we have towns, because those are the things I think you need to do, where we take in people like Syrian peoples or peoples into direct provisions, we must give some extra service to that locality, however we do it. And I would ask you in conclusion to look at that, and we should make a special case for towns like that and for GPs like that that are caught in those situations. They can't cope. That's the bottom line.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. To conclude.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. And again, I want to reiterate, I do take on board the points that the Deputy is making with regard to the reception and orientation centre in the town and the additional strains that will put on an existing GP practice. And I will relay those concerns back to the Senior Minister and to the HSE in foot of what the Deputy has raised here today. And again, just urge the GP to engage, you know, to go back to the primary care unit locally. As you will appreciate, I can't address the detail on a local scale, only on a national and policy issue, but certainly the HSE primary care unit would be the appropriate place to have further discussions with the GP. But I will pass on the concerns to the HSE at a national level, and I'll also relay them to the Senior Minister.
Thank you.